welcome to Answer Me 10, the podcast, with me, Barbara Dickson. Having been interviewed many times over the years, I'm always conscious of the generic nature of interviewing. And in my case, it usually begins with, "So Barbara, tell me, how did it all begin?" This has never exactly excited me, but I've always enjoyed reading those one-page affairs at the back of glossy magazines, which ask the same stereotypical questions to different people every week. Hugely diverse answers appear. So, I thought it would be fun to pose the same 10 questions to some other notable women in the world of music and see what different answers they would give. This is what Answer Me 10 with Barbara Dickson is all about. I hope you enjoy the journey with me. Today's guest is Scottish singer EDDI Reader, whose professional career began in the early 1980s as a session singer for such artists as Alison Moyet, the Waterboys and Eurythmics. In 1988, she formed the band Fairground Attraction with Mark Nevin, and their debut album, The First of a Million Kisses, earned them a Brit Award and contained the singles Find My Love and the #1 hit, Perfect. The band split up soon after releasing their second album, and EDDI went on to achieve solo success with her self-titled album featuring the hit song The Patience of Angels. In 2003, she released an album of Robert Burns songs which saw a resurgence in the bard's popularity. To date, she's released 12 studio albums, received an MBE and continues to perform around the world. Question 1. Town or country?
I was thinking about town or country, and I thought sometimes I can't bear to be away from a bustling city with lots of things to do, but then you do need the break. And I was just spending some time in Irvine, where we left Glasgow in 1976 for Irvine, Ayrshire, which is a smaller town than Glasgow, as you know. And we moved to a little council estate just outside the town of Irvine, and it was like peace descended. And so I just spent 5 days with my mum, who's 82, Jean, and oh my goodness, the peace that I got just by being in that environment. No sound, no traffic, not even an airplane going over.
I'm like you, I was raised on a council estate on the edge of a town. So there was a huge connection at that time for me in the late 50s, early 60s into the countryside. Although we were in an estate, we were right on the edge. So you got we went out on our bikes up country lanes and stuff. Did you do that as well as a kid?
Yeah, we had a river, the River Irvine, and the Annick River as well, just at the back of the new estate. And they were still building the houses. It was a massive playground, but my age was very instrumental in that whole transition because I was 16 going on 17. And so I was sort of joining a new school at the grown-up end of the new school, so 5th year, 6th year. And I was able to peruse my art and peruse the environment a little bit more easily without any threat of, fitting in or anything. Because when you get to 5th year and 6th year, you sort of get a bit more independent and you kind of hone down what you want to do. So I actually discovered this amazing life and artistic life happening in Irvine, of which you were a massive contributor because of the Mirimus Festival and the Harbour Arts Centre and the Eglinton Folk Club. And that gave me a massive alternative to, normal pop roots or rock and roll roots. Although I did enjoy all that, I found the folk scene so enticing, and it was in 1978 that I was kind of 18. So that was the big thing when I went to the Irvine Folk Club for the first time and practiced singing out loud to people folk songs or even songs that I'd learned by John Denver. They always come up to me and said, "Aye, hen, you're awfully good, but you're no as good as Barbara."
Well, what I wanted to ask you was that you've gone to visit your mum, who's on the edge of a town, and
Yeah.
you are living in town. But how do you feel about continuing to live in town? Would you always want to be in town? This is really to do with how you feel about the juxtaposition of being in the country and being in town.
Yeah, I don't know actually till I get there. Right now, I can get in the car and go between the two, but certainly, if I got very infirm or older, then I would consider maybe a quieter environment, as long as I could reach the shops and the telly.
Well, that's fairly well covered, I think we have there. And your mum, of course, is still around, which is great. And she's on the edge of a town, and she seems to be managing all right in where she lives, which is kind of interesting.
Oh my God, my mum is 82. My mum's 82, and she lives in it's still a 5 apartment that she brought up 7 children in. So we're trying really hard. I mean, I kind of say, Mum, don't you think you could downsize? But she doesn't want to give up her house with 2 levels in it to climb upstairs even when she's a little bit shakier on her feet.
Yeah.
I think that's you've got to honor what people feel about it. And if she feels happier in that home, then we can't really push her into a new build bungalow somewhere, you know.
Right. Question 2, meat or veg?
I'm leaning more and more towards vegetable eating. I'd eat a fish before I'd eat any kind of horrible meaty, kind of fatty meat. But I love trying all sorts of things, and I will eat anything. But I am leaning more towards vegetables.
Do you cook, Eddie? Are you interested in cooking?
When the attraction arises and I feel in the mood, I can cook you a lovely meal. We like cooking couscous as well in our family, because that's a beautiful vegetarian kind of stew. You can add meat to it, but it is delicious. And I learned to do that from my first husband's mother, who was Algerian, Kabyle, from the north of Africa. And she taught us how to cook beautiful couscous. And we have that on special occasions. And I like to cook it then.
That's so interesting, because my lovely friend Martha Rafferty, she had a Moroccan mother-in-law. She still has a Moroccan mother-in-law who taught her to make those meals. So there we are. I know 2 people who can. It's so beautiful, that North African food. I love it.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I wouldn't give up a merguez sausage. Have you had a merguez sausage ever?
No, I haven't.
Well, a merguez sausage, there's only certain butchers will do it for you, but it's of course, it's got no pig in it because it's North African and from the Muslim tradition, but it's not as hot, in fact, hardly hot, but it's got spices in it, but it's not as hot as the chorizo that you get in Spain.
So is it lamb? Is it made of lamb?
I think it's lamb and spices, but it's very thin and about a foot or 7 inches long, so you can fry it. I know it's really lovely, but it's very thin. It's probably only an inch round, if you know what I mean. It's quite
amazing. It sounds fantastic. Well, delicious. I must try that. That's a new one on me. So you would find that, like a lot of my guests, your preference is moving towards vegetarian food, but you do like certain things that are omnivorous. So you would eat a bit of that sausage, and you do like fish. So you're a pescatarian as well.
Maybe shellfish-tarian.
Shellfish, I don't quite, that would be crustacean. I don't quite know what that would be. Question 3, TV, film or books?
Well, I indulge in the telly, and it's so good nowadays because and with COVID, we couldn't go to the cinema. So, but, we'd get a movie, but more and more I'm leaning towards the 6-part series, like we get from the front to the end. and you can
Yes.
do it all in 2 nights or
Yes.
whatever, you know. And
Binge watching. I
aye,
appreciate that as well. It keeps your interest so that you don't forget what's happened. And that's another thing as well. You really focused on it. So I appreciate what you're saying.
the other thing is with some movies these days, they you kind of see the arc of it before it happens, and they're not as for me as they're a bit what's the word? It's like getting a bag of crisps and you open it up and there's only a quarter of a packet, you know. Yeah, we used to have meaty stories. I like meaty stories, and I like songs. I like meaty songs with real emotional authenticity in them. And so you get that when you've got it spread over 6 episodes, you know, and a beginning and an end is great too, rather than an endless thing, you know.
I was thinking as you said that, my husband said to me, I've just taped Casablanca, because he obviously saw that it was on television. And so there we are. We don't watch loads of old films, but there you have a brilliantly edited, wonderful story.
And I found that I do hark back to things that I loved and I didn't quite understand when I was younger, like things like Sunset Boulevard. We watched that the other day, and I'm really wanting to watch. There was a film called Maggie. I can't remember the director, but it's all scenes of Glasgow in the 50s, and it's about a puffer boat. Do you know it?
I know that film, yes. And it's where the kind of idea of Parahandy came from, isn't it? The wee tugboat and the pompous skipper who sort of is thinks he's an admiral, and he's sort
Aye.
that's what made it funny, I think. Do you read?
Well, I know how to read, but I'm getting lazier and I'm using Audible more and more and more because I like listening while I'm doing something else. I am my mother's child. I do about 15 things at once with a brush up my backside as well at the same time, cleaning the kitchen. So I like to listen on, and especially with the earbuds, and you know, you can have the sound wherever you are in the house. I'm trying to sell them to my mother at the minute. I said, look, you can listen to River City and go into the bathroom.
That is fun. Now, what would you listen to? What are you listening to when you're listening in that way?
Various things. I have been listening to podcasts a lot. There's some really great podcasts about Elvis, about there's one about the murders I quite like, because I want to, you know, especially mysteries, and we have to figure them out. And I'm talking about real ones. I don't know why I am indulging in that. Maybe I'm trying to solve it or something. I don't know, but certainly one that I really got off of recently was an Elizabeth Gilbert book called Big Magic, which is all about creativity and how we stop it happening sometimes with our inner critic and how to allow it, etc. And it's a wonderful book for artists, I think. And I think we're all artists.
Yeah. So that's a great cross section. So you've got murder mysteries, you've got sort of life affirming, sort of self-improving stuff, and biography. So you're well covered there. But you wouldn't pick up a book when you go on holiday. God willing, we'll one day go on holiday again. Would you take books on holiday? Would you have a Kindle, or would you read novels?
I used to. Yes, I probably take a book, but I probably end up in the water looking at the fish more often than.
You can do both, Eddie. You're allowed to do both, you know.
The last book I took on holiday was that the Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, which is a real life mystery book, and I read that start to finish. I didn't get off the beach, got burnt, completely, totally roast. Books can be dangerous for me because I won't sleep. If I get my head around reading a book, I'll be sitting in that same position about 24 hours later.
That's good though, because it's a good concentration thing, and that's the thing with living in a world now where there's so many distractions. It's really good to stay focused on something. So that is from I'm turning that on its head and saying that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I love the meditative quality of listening to the self-help and spiritualist books. I'm a student of the Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles is these books, and you can get them on Audible. And I just listen every morning to a chapter, and it's so life affirming, and it lifts you out of any kind of ego doldrums that you might be in. Yeah.
Question 4. Night owl or early riser?
Yeah, I think that I probably think my favorite, if you pin me down, I'd say my favorite time is when everybody else in the world is sleeping as much as possible. I suppose that's city living as well. You know, you like the quiet of 3 in the morning. In Glasgow, yeah, 3 in the morning can be loud. It depends on where you are, but most of the places, everyone is going to bed or settling down, and it just feels so. There's nothing to distract you, and if the weather is all right, you can even sit in the garden at night. We have festoon lighting in my back garden, and I'm lucky enough to be able to sit on a little swing and just watch the stars. I enjoy that type of night.
So what are you doing when everybody is asleep and you've got the quiet? What are you just thinking? Are you concentrating on something? What do you like to do at that time?
I like to listen to an inner voice that might be more intelligent than I am, and I like it to comfort me about the moment. I like being in the moment, looking at the trees, looking at the wildlife around me. And I have 2 kittens that I got through COVID, so now I'm kind of awake when they're awake, which is nighttime, and we play together, and I enjoy the moments. That's what I love most of all, because I think most of the day you're distracted by ego concerns, whereas in the middle of the night, you can't phone anybody, you can't do anything, nobody can really phone you. And I think it's great to try and capture what it feels like to just be.
I'm looking at you being awake at 3 a.m. in the garden on the swing with the kittens and thinking perhaps here is a woman who doesn't sleep. I mean, have you got problems with sleeping?
Not now. I mean, I did when I thought too much, but now I've got into meditation, and I do that in the mornings, and I'm up. My eyes will just wait open, and I'll be awake at. It could be 7:30. It's usually 7:29. I don't know why, but it's 7:29, and I just sort of wake up, and that's it. It used to be that I would sleep to 4 in the afternoon, but now I don't so much. I like to get up, and also that is a good time of day when nobody else is awake yet. Quite. That's also great. So
I've always said on these podcasts that I tend to naturally wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning and always have. Sometimes I'll get up at 6:30 if my husband's away and it's the lovely light mornings like it's been, because I'll take a cup of tea outside and sit in the sunshine with, again, nothing going on, quietness. But my natural instinct is to wake up. I don't find it easy to stay up late, you see. I find it really weird. Even when I'm on tour, I'm in bed at midnight.
Well, I think, I don't think it's to do with age. I think it's to do with wisdom. But staying up late, I tended to do more often when I was younger. And I think that I enjoyed it because of the energy in the room. Because I do think that sometimes when your body says sleep, it can be at 3 in the afternoon, go for a nap.
That's what I do when I'm on tour. You know, I'm so boring. I go, but I started this when I was pregnant, going for a nap in the afternoon. And I've actually just kept doing it. When I'm working, I go to sleep in the afternoon. And when I'm not working, I don't need to, because I can go to bed early. Question 5, faith or fatalism?
I'm very much into the law of attraction. So I do believe that we are here as we have Earth School, and I believe that there is a higher power, a source to which we are all connected equally and all a part of equally. And I do believe that the job that we're here to do is assigned to us, and I think that's either in cooperation with our own higher self. So we are in conjunction with it in the creative sense. We are here to enjoy attracting and repelling what we want and don't want. And when we continually focus on what we don't want, we kind of get stuck in the doldrums and we don't move forward. So we have to accept what happens to us as part of the earth schoolness of it all. And then beyond that, how we deal with it, what we focus on, we either relive it, or we move forward from it and learn from it. So it's about that for me now. So there's a certain, I agree there are things that are going to happen, but I believe that how we deal with it is in our control, and how we attract it or repel it is also in our control.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a sort of slight Buddhist thing in what you're saying. A lot of Buddhist thing about, each life is a learning process, and what happens to you next time, because of the reincarnation aspect of what they believe in, you would take with you your experiences of this particular current life.
Absolutely. I think that this current life is an ego construct, and our perception is creating it like a painter would. We're creating it by what we want to see, how we're conditioned when we're born, what we're born into. Will sort of give us sort of little markers and signposts. But how it will sound mad to some people. I just don't believe in death. I believe the body can stop, but I don't believe we are only a body, and I don't believe that we die. I think
we are stardust.
We are golden, and we've got to get ourselves.
We are stardust, indeed. We're full of stardust from the Big Bang, which is fantastically profound. Question 6, Facebook or the phone?
Yeah, I would say I'd go for the phone more, but I love the text ability now, because as a singer, as you know, there's times when we want to shut up and not use the thing that we live on for our livelihood. Sometimes, talking when you've been doing 3 gigs in a row is annoying. So I adore the fact that I can just go onto my phone and text somebody or write something rather than speak it.
There is that wonderful thing about texting. So if we're talking about the phone now and leaving Facebook alone, there's that wonderful thing about the phone, is that you're in control of that particularly. You don't have to post things. You're actually choosing, from what you're saying, to contact somebody, but in your own time. When you have the time to say, "Hiya, Mum, how are you?" Then you are able to do that when you've got a minute to do it. And then your mum, presumably, or whoever you're contacting, will reply when they have the time, saying, "I'm really well, thanks. Thanks for getting in touch." So that is within your control. That's what I'm thinking is a good idea. I don't know about you.
I absolutely think that everything that humans are inventing have positive and negative, and I choose to believe in the positive of things like Facebook and social media, although my children would disagree. Well, one of my sons in particular thinks it's the ruination of mankind, but I don't believe that. I believe that we are creatures that go hand in hand in the ark. We go together. We can't do it alone. We need each other. And I think the communication that I discovered with, for example, say Twitter, some people would poo-poo it, but what I loved about Twitter was that if you watch something or some event happened, if you remember in the school days back in the 60s or even in the 70s, it used to be that you'd go into school and everybody'd be talking about the thing that you saw or the thing that happened. And I think that's what I find Twitter doing or Facebook doing now. They're all going, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And so we all share the same information about something, or we have different opinions about it, but we have this ability now to connect throughout the planet very, very easily. I can talk to people in Pasadena as easily as I can to somebody in Bearsden.
The world has shrunk, absolutely. And also, I was thinking also, you haven't mentioned your work. Obviously, something like Facebook, I'm just talking about generically, Facebook is a very good way of letting people who love Eddie Reader know what Eddie Reader is doing.
I have to say that certainly things change, and some people will lose their jobs because there's not the same radio distribution, and we've got things like Spotify that doesn't pay the artist. That sort of thing annoys me, because the people that are in charge of these streaming forms of delivering music to people, they are creating massive profits for themselves and not sharing it. It's difficult to figure it out, because it's like the gold rush. It's like a new era. So you would get somebody who's a computer operator and not a musician, who will be able to give somebody who loves Louis Armstrong all of Louis Armstrong's catalogue, but Louis Armstrong gets a penny, and the guy that gave it to the punter, if you like, is getting $1 million.
It's fantastically unfair, and it's also very unfair for young artists starting.
Yes.
Because it's bad enough for people who are in a position where they have enough live work and they have enough of a career to make money elsewhere. But to get yourself noticed is a very, very different thing to the kind and nurturing atmosphere of a folk club where a man got up and said, "Does anybody want to sing tonight?" And that was the most amazing thing, because you didn't even have to be good. You could be singing a really bad version of the Muck and a Geordie's Byre, and everybody would politely listen to you. And that was so helpful to young people who were nervous starting up. Now, we don't need to go there, but I'm just saying that is a case in point.
Well, I heard that, for example, for me as a young musician, when I was 16, 17, didn't know anything, didn't know the world at all, except my mother's world and my father's world. But when I had the opportunity of a folk club to be able to go up and sing, I think that's still here in the world. We can still organise events where new artists can be heard. And there will always be people who want to hear what's sparkling and new and wonderful.
Question 7. Shower or bath?
Well, I like a romantic bath with my man sometimes, and I love a shower when I want to wake up and feel refreshed. So
which would you prefer? Oh no, you can't have both. You have to decide. You see, this is the rule here. I make the rules. At my house, my rules.
As long as you're under my roof, this is. I think I said that to my Lincoln son the other day, and I thought, for goodness sake, the things you hated hearing when you were a child coming back to haunt you through your own mouth. Now, I would say, for the environment's sake, I will go with shower, because that is the best for the world, not to use up too much water.
Do you like the idea, or do you indulge in what I would call a kind of like a therapeutic experience of being in the bath? That is the thinking time, the aromatherapy, the sniffing in the oils, and just lying there and allowing your bones to kind of lighten with the water. Do you enjoy that sort of experience?
I do enjoy that sort of experience, but I'm looking at the positives of a shower, right? The positive of a shower for everybody else, which is the environment and the world, but also the positives of a shower for a singer. And Barbara, you know this, standing 10 minutes in a shower full of steam is the best thing for your voice when you're warming up. So I couldn't give that up. Yeah, you can do that in a bath to a certain extent, but then you get all wrinkly. And so, yeah, no, I like the shower.
Well, you get all wrinkly anyway, unfortunately, as time goes on. But I know what you mean. They used to hike the kids out in the swimming baths, didn't they, just to check the ends of their fingers. And they said, "You've been in too long. You've outstayed. You're welcome." Question 8. Spring or autumn?
Well, as I'm in it, I'm going to say this time is the spring, when all the buds are budding and the possibility of the beautiful summer is still on the cards. It's like a Scotland game, isn't it? You're kind of going, we've still got the chance until the end of summer, when you've gone, was that it? So yes, I'm a spring girl, I think I am. Although I was born, my birthday's in autumn time, and I love it.
One or two people I've spoken to have mentioned birthdays. I, like you, have an autumn birthday, But there is, I also delve down when I'm talking to people and say, if your preference is for spring, does that mean that you feel slightly sad in autumn, that the nature is kind of shutting down for the winter? Would that ever occur to you, or would you be positive about living in the moment, which is obviously important to you?
Living in the moment is always important to me, and I've noticed some years when I get to autumn, I don't feel sad. I feel like carrying in, and I want to say goodbye to the plants for the winter. I put the fleece on my jasmine plants and hope that they survive through it because it's cold out there. And I love that John Spillane song. I think Mary Black sung it, The Dance of the Cherry Trees. We've been around the sun. It's taken us all year. Well done, everyone. Well done. When he sees the cherry trees blooming again. So I think when autumn happens, I don't see an ending. I see a resting period.
Things are sort of dying back. And one of my guests, I can't remember who it was, said something that was very positive about things are still going on under the ground. You know, there's all that stuff happening, consolidation going on. So nothing really has stopped. It's going on, but it's out of sight. And you could almost apply that to all sorts of things. That's a very kind of metaphysical thing to say. But I also, a lot of people talk about autumn with regard to, say, Christmas, that they like the idea of sort of battening down the hatches to some extent. And the winter festival that we have is Christmas, where people are gathering, but we have fires. And we have warmth and that hygge thing, you know, that sort of Scandinavian thing. Do you like that?
I do. I love all the traditions that the human being has invented. I love the Halloween period. So we have the end of summer into Halloween, and you know the harvest. Is it Samhain? Samhain they call it, where we started the All Souls Day. The All Souls Day Eve, which is the Christian version of it, but the pagan version, or the more ancient traditional version in Scotland, is Samhain, where we notice that we can commune with the spirits more at that time of night. I think that the night before All Souls Day, and then the Christians took that over. It became Halloween, All Hallows Eve. And then it leads into the run-up to buying gifts and the hopefulness of Christmas.
The interesting thing about Halloween, which you've just brought up, and I haven't spoken to anybody about Halloween yet, is this amazing thing. As a child, I remember Halloween being a really important festival in Scotland. It was not trick or treat, and it was not what people do, but actually what you did was trick or treat. So the American trick or treat festival that they do has obviously come from over here because of this thing about you give a present to a child, or they do a turn. So there's a turn, or you get a gift, all that kind of stuff. And also the traditions of the treacle on the scones, dangling, and the ducking for apples and all that kind of stuff, which I remember very, very strongly from being a child. But English people never did that.
Did they not?
They never did that. No, that was only in Scotland. The guising that we did, which is coming, and also the term guising was, we don't know if it's disguising or whether the guising comes from Guise, Mary of Guise, who was Mary Queen of Scots' mother, that family, that French family, where they did masks and balls and things at court. So it's possible that word came from there, but we don't actually know. Probably Iona Fife would know.
Well, definitely I go to Robert Burns for that, because I think he was well immersed in the traditions of Halloween, or Samhain, and they probably still called it Samhain way back in 1787 or whatever. And I think that what I love about that is that it talks to us it's a telephone line to our ancestors, and I do believe it. I'm never ending informing all Americans and any English person or any Western or Eastern or Northern or Southern person that it's a Scottish tradition, and it comes from Celtic mythology. And Celtic mythology is such a wealth of a gold mine of beauty and story, and I enjoy delving into that. And I think Samhain is our little connection to that.
Question 9. Dine out or take out?
I suppose I have to say dine out. Takeout is all right, but I just end up feeling like a couch potato. I think I like the tradition of sitting together, eating together. I think people in the Christ tradition use the Last Supper. They talk about it as eating together in the spirit of love. So I enjoy the love that comes with dining together. Although there's many times I've been with a rotten boyfriend and it's been a big argument over the dining table.
If you were going out nowadays and you were going out to have a meal, would you look forward to that in a way that you would dress up, you would wear special clothes to go out, or would you just like to sort of go out in your normal stuff? And how do you feel about having a meal out? And what would you like to eat if you went out? What sort of food?
My favorite ever way of eating out is in a beautiful Italian big restaurant full of busy waiters, girls and boys all serving you, and millions of people all singing happy birthday at different tables. There's a restaurant. There's a restaurant down in Byres, down the bottom of Byres Road and Dumbarton Road, I think, and it is just like that. It's like a big giant room full of all sorts of people all celebrating life, and that's what I love about it. Yeah, I'd eat Italian then for that, because the Italians are the best at family. Let's face it, they know how to do weddings.
They are.
Yeah.
Question 10. High heels or trainers?
Well, to be honest, the top part would be glittery and the bottom part would be my slippers that I bought in Australia, because they're the most comfortable things ever. They're UGG slippers. And if I could get away with walking about I'm going to actually, the next tour I do, that's what I'm wearing on stage, and I couldn't give a hang anymore. I can't get into high heels because I fall over, and I love them. I love the look of them, but I just don't know how to do it. And because I was 5'10.5" when I was 18, and I've kind of shrunk to 5'8.5", but I remember not being able to wear high heels when I was a young girl. So I didn't train the way, you used to see Amy Winehouse in 6-inch heels, or I see them walking about and I'm like, you are a trapeze artist.
I think Amy Winehouse was very small, though, wasn't she? I mean, in height. I don't think she was very tall. I think it's a psychological thing to some extent that some women do like to have high heels because it makes them taller. But we also, as fraternity of women musicians, have talked about the leg line on stage is good. If you get yourself a little bit of height on stage, the leg line looks good with your costume. I don't know if you agree with that.
Absolutely, but I prefer bare feet. I know Sandy Shaw isn't the greatest singer in the world, but I think the centering of ourselves on stage, I wouldn't go on a stage barefoot anymore because I've seen too many dirty stages with cigarette ends on.
And also, but you could get a giant splinter in your foot on most stages, couldn't you? They're wooden and old.
Yeah, exactly. And I have tried wearing a kind of wedge heel, but what I find, see, it's all to do with my own height. My experience as a human being was I was tall. So if I ever wore high heels when I was younger, I towered over every single man alive.
Yes,
and I wasn't very attractive. I didn't feel very attractive. I felt like it, and I wanted to be desired. I didn't want to walk about feeling like an alien on this planet.
Young women, especially in their teens, are very sensitive to that kind of thing. And when you look back at it, you think, oh, how silly that was. And I'm not talking about you and your high heels experience, but there's always in our lives, there's something, isn't there, that you think something's wrong, or your nose is too big, or your bum's too big, or something like that. And you do things to try and minimize people looking at that aspect of you, which they're not looking at all. It's only you that's obsessed with it.
My height was in school. I just towered over everyone. And what's the weather like up there? And Hey, Skinny, watch that drain. You don't fall down.
No,
That
and
kind of
it's
thing.
so, and yeah, and kids, as we know, are not very kind to each other. So there we
Aye.
go.
I admire my what I was given now. Now I appreciate it. Now that I've lost 2 inches. I don't know why, but I've lost 2 inches, and as we shrink and gravity does pull you to the back to earth. I like the idea that I appreciate my height, actually. I appreciate that I don't have to jump over anybody, any live concert in the past. You know, I didn't have to stand on boxes or shoulders or whatever. But certainly I enjoy that. But I love seeing beautiful shoes on women. I do enjoy that. And so I would say I'm a flat shoe person. But I have dreams of being able to wear glittering Judy Garland 6-inchers.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, I tend to wear sort of stack ankle boots and stuff for stage, and wear flat shoes. I don't ever wear trainers apart from running, where I do wear them and then I take them off because I just wear proper shoes, but flat shoes I find much easier.
Yeah.
Eddie, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for agreeing to be my guest on Answer Me 10 with Barbara Dickson.
Answer me, oh my love.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Lovely to talk to you.
Love you.
Lots of love, and thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Answer Me 10 with me, Barbara Dickson. This podcast was recorded in Edinburgh in 2021 and produced and edited by Lee Noble and John Eden.